Hello, hello. This is Heidi Powell-Prera coming to you from Houston, Texas with the iFocus podcast. Today I have the honor and privilege of introducing to you Miss Eileen Dong. She is a Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award recipient, a TEDx speaker, and now author of a fabulous book. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Heidi. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm going to go ahead and just start off with what's the first thing I have on my mind. When I saw the title of your book, Thank Your Predator, this is such a powerful title. And I know that you worked so hard fighting for against human trafficking and against victimization and for human rights. And this book has been a long time coming. And I remember we spoke about it before in the past. I'm just, I'm curious how you came to that title. It's such a powerful and empowering title.
Well, thank you for asking this question. Like you said, it has been a long time coming. I must say that I have to come back and forth several times because of the trauma I had to relive while writing this book. But I have come to realization after having so many versions of the title that I do have to thank my predators, actually plural, because of my poly-victimization. The reason being that when I was going through that, to give you a background, I went through poly-victimization, meaning multiple times through different predators. While I was away from my family, all my family members are in China, 8,000 miles away. I went down on my knees and cried out to God, angry with God, like, why? Why are you bringing this to me here in America with no support system? And I was devastated and had nowhere to go. And that's one thing lead to another and more victimization. But in short, because of that, I really was at the point that, I have to seek for life. It was like life or death. There was no choice. So I had to make it. And while I was exploring that, I was going through, how do I get back on my feet? How do I go through my trauma? How do I really make it? I had to, find a life really to start over again as a baby, to start with new friends, a new place, and everything. And in this book, I'm going to share with my experiences, which I want with the purpose of highlighting that there is light and hope at the end of the tunnel. And I'm speaking to you, if you are listening, that you are still going through that, you haven't come out yet for various reasons, then there is hope at the end of the tunnel. And I am going to share in this book about the trauma recovery I have compiled with medical advices from my therapists with my own knowledge. Today, I speak about cultural competency, about trauma informed, about survivor centered, and I have compiled my own knowledge and practices and research, and with the case studies in the book to talk about what is the best practice in terms of trauma recovery. What is the best practice in terms of if you are law enforcement or victim service provider? What are some of the approaches? What is the situation about cultural competency, the cultural stigmas? And I want to say that when I was working in this field, I realized that I thought it was just for Asian because I'm from China. I thought, well, you don't understand me because I'm from China. But as I am speaking in public so many times, I got people from Arabic cultures. I have people from Hispanic cultures. I have people from Latino cultures, and everyone, African American, everyone coming to me say, you know what, Eileen, this happened to me too, because this happened in my country. Or Eileen, here, I am American, but in our culture, we call this what happens in the family stays in the family. But I have come up with the best practices for them as a companion book through my training, that they will be able to learn more best practices through these case studies. But more importantly, why I call this Thank You Predator, because I would not have been where I am here today. And to give you a little bit background, I am a petroleum engineer. engineer. I'm a NASA scholar. I am a supply chain executive. I used to work in a completely different world. I had never even imagined myself being working in this field. And today I must say that I go to bed think about this and wake up thinking about this, and I am like fully committed to working this fight. But if it wasn't for my predators, I wouldn't be here today. So I do thank my predator for challenging me for the limitless limit, which I call, to bring me where I am today. And this is not the end. This is just the beginning. And I want to share with you all listening that if I can do this, so can you. There is hope and light at the end of the tunnel. Thank you.
So your book is kind of a guidepost for people that need to heal and need to come out. You were saying that it's a cultural barrier that a lot of people don't speak out and don't, because a lot of people would be shocked that somebody as from your background, the daughter of a doctor from a good life, would come to this country and fall into such a trap. Can you tell us a little bit about how that happened?
Yes, so the book I want to add that it is definitely a guide, as what we call a guide to trauma recovery from abuse. That is definitely a guide for a victim right now, and I hope you will be a survivor and a thriver. But it's also explains about the cultural competency, the cultural stigmas, and other components about that will be helpful as a training companion book for law enforcement as well as the victim service providers. Now, going back to my story, yes, so I want to tell everyone that anyone can be a victim, regardless of your education background, your socioeconomic status, your race, nationality, gender, anything. I know survivors from as young as several months old to as old as 80 years old. So, yes, it's true. I know elders are also victims of trafficking. So, that's really what I want people to know. Another thing I want people to know is that with the recent movie of The Sound of Freedom, people might think that, well, this is really very sad and very tragic, but this is not happening in my backyard. I want to let you know that I just got off the call with someone from a different state that they're being trafficked, and there's the boy being trafficked by a nanny in the community. So this is happening in your backyard. And that goes back to me. So I came here sick for a life, and I was what my friends called naive. So I fell into this grooming process, which is literally like in the domestic violence and human trafficking has this intersection of the power and control. So literally what happens is you meet the perpetrator, they groom you from what we call different types of pimps. There's the gorilla pimp, which we see on the movie, really scary, masculine with tattoos all over their neck and arms, or just what we call the Romeo pimp. So in my case, it was the Romeo pimp who came to me and say, okay, I'm gonna love you. I'm gonna shower you with gift and everything. So primarily, they want to gain your trust so that they can isolate you, so that they can make you think that they really love you, so that one day when they ask you to do things, it's because they love you, and you're gonna kind of like love them back or do things back in return. And that's how I started this. But it was like one thing led to another while I was escaping my situation, because again, my family is 8,000 miles away. Then I went to another, fell into another victimization.
That's an amazing story. I'm so glad that I have got a chance to meet you and be a part of this. I met you really early on in the Hope Picks Global. Tell me a little bit about how that came about, the idea for you to create Hope Picks Global and help other survivors like yourself.
Thank you, Heidi. Yes, we have known each other for quite a while yet, and I must say that in the beginning I was very shy. I did not want to share my story. I was just volunteering. So when we met, I was still just volunteering. So I attended different coalition task force meetings, and I was part of it and did a lot of volunteer work. But most importantly, hiding, just like being discreet because I don't want to be on the forefront until one day at the coalition meeting, the former judge from the 280th court came to me, Angelina Gooden, Judge Gooden. She said, Eileen, your ethnicity is not underrepresented. It's not represented at all. You need to do something. And literally, I had my jaw wide open. And I looked at her. I said, Judge, you know this is a big commitment. And you know me, Eileen, if I give you my words, I will do it. But let me pray for it. So I always tell people that it's kind of like the movie Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. And in my case, I pray to God because when I was going through this trauma, I went down on my knees asking God, say, why are you, having all these things happening to me with my family 8,000 miles away? So I prayed to him, with him, whispering to me, said, I am doing this because so that one day you can humble yourself and understand what people are going through so you can use this to help them. So I asked him, if this is what you're calling me to do, then tell me what to do. Because my background, believe it or not, come from a diverse background, but not and everything but nonprofit management. So I have been a NASA engineer, a petroleum engineer, NASA scholar, and supply chain executive, and I even worked in Formula One Grand Prix, but nothing related to nonprofit and or human trafficking, human rights the aspect. So I prayed, and he sent me the sign, and that's how I got started. And long story short, fast forward, today we are providing the services in different pillars
Yeah, that
from
was gonna be my next question is what kind of services does Hope Picks Global have available? And you said it's for all, that you're kind of representing your community, but it's available to anyone, any victim, correct?
Yes, that is true. The reason why we started the nonprofit is because my ethnicity was underrepresented or non-represented. So we want to make sure that everyone is served. Just like the July 30th, I spoke at UN's World Day Against Human Trafficking. It says, leaves no victim behind. And this is really our goal as well. And that being said, we serve people from all backgrounds, regardless of their just Asian and or not, because in my work, I realized that it's not just the Asians had the stigma. We talked about, Hispanic, African American, Arabic culture, and different cultures. They all have the similarity, whether we call it culture stigma in Asia called honor and shame, or we in the American culture call what happens in the family stays in the family. It's all the same. So back to your question regarding what pillars of services that we provide. So we provide educational services. We provide economic empowerment for our survivors, and we also provide consulting services. So to dive into the details a little bit regarding the economic empowerment, what we call for the survivors is to help them with the job training, a job placement. So that includes if you don't have any literature background, then you can become a chef, or we also provide education to become an ultrasound technician. Regarding the consulting work, we provide whether it's like speaking at different conferences, doing the training, and or making recommendation for programs and or policies. And we'll dive into a little bit about the policy later, SB 49, Heidi.
What
Regarding the
about what about in the moment? Somebody that's really like ready to speak out, needs help, doesn't know how to reach out, maybe is in a dangerous situation. Who should they reach out to?
So we're in Houston here. There are several organizations that provides the help. The dangerous situation, my advice through my personal experience is, first of all, you must make a safety plan. Don't just get out, because whether it's from there are intersections between domestic violence, human trafficking, sexual assault, but when the victim leave, that's when the homicide takes place at the highest rate. So I urge you to go talk to a counselor or social service provider to make a safety plan. And that being said, a few of the organizations that I recommend, assuming that you will need legal help, Lone Star Legal Aid, they provide free legal services. And if you are a domestic violence or human trafficking survivor, then they will issue protective orders for you. And if you are immigrant, you will get assistance to get the T visa. There's also the Tahiri Center that they provide the legal services. But a lot of the situation for our victims not able to come out is about financial reasons. What if they are in danger? What if they do need legal help?
Right. How can they create a safety plan without any legal?
Right, right. So how can they create a safety plan? So with the safety plan, they can go with the caseworkers or the counselors or the lawyers who can make the referral to them. But they need a safe place to stay. In my case, I don't have a family. So the reason why I got victimized so many times is because I had to sleep on people's couches. And I don't know those people. They are strangers. So you have a choice to be homeless, sleep on people's couches, and be victimized, or go to a shelter. So my next recommendation is go to the shelters. There are several in the greater Houston area. So from the Montgomery County, there's the Montgomery County Women's Center. To Clear Lake area, there's the Bridge Over Troubled Water. There's also Bay Area Turning Point, and also in Fort Bend, there's Fort Bend Women's Center. And in Central Houston, there's Hawk, Houston Area Women's Center. These all have shelters. I know that there is a huge shortage, and we just got out of a meeting recently with the shortage numbers. In my TED Talk, we talked about the shortage, and there's a huge deficit. And that is our goal, our long-term goal for HopeX Global, to raise funds to have shelter to begin with in Houston, but eventually have shelters around the country. And that being said, one of our events is October 26th, the International Conference on Abuse. That's going to take place in Houston, Texas, at the Houston Community College Hayes campus on Westheimer, with a hybrid option. And
Is
more,
it an all-day event or is it just in the evening? What are the hours on it?
it's all day event. So right now we've received uh, just inside information. We've received over 40 speaker proposals. We have to kindly reject them. So it's gonna be from 9 to about 5 and 6. And in between, there's also, in combination with the conference, we have the International Book Awards. Unlike any regular book awards, we have authors who are survivors themselves, or authors who are voice for the voiceless, who cannot speak for whatever reason at the moment. And we will be honoring these recipients, award winner recipients as well.
Wonderful. I remember the International Book Awards, pre-pandemic. That that was a fabulous event. You had
Yes,
mentioned that you had just gotten a great accomplishment. You got something passed in Congress, and I'm sorry, I can't ever remember the initials. That's why I had you explain it to me. Can you explain it to my audience?
absolutely. So this is a very active legislative session. We have, worked closely with the state capitol in Texas, as well as the national capital in DC. We have several of the bills still in progress, but one of them has passed, is SB 49, that is for crime victim compensation. And that covers crime victims for their, let's say, relocation, to cover themselves as well as their families and other expenses. Originally, the cap was 1800. We were able to raise that with the economy and inflation. Now it will be 5,000, effective on September 1st this year.
Fabulous. What a great accomplishment. And you said
Thank you.
you have a few other bills that are in the works. And so,
Yes.
what are those?
So a few of the bills that I have supported is no human trafficking in school zones. So we are still in the works. About a month ago, we had a press conference and talking about a recent incident in Dallas about human trafficking that was on the news. And with that, the bill itself is gonna really criminalize traffickers in school zones and put a limit, say, okay, this is the how many feet away from the school zones, how many feet away from where children are going to play, and criminalize them if they were going to traffic our children. So that's still in the progress, and we hope really to have this bill to pass because our children are at high risk.
Okay. You mentioned briefly for a moment the movie The Sound of Freedom. I know everyone's talking about it. What are your thoughts on the film? Do you think it's an accurate representation of the situation?
Thank you for asking that. I think the movie, has received a lot of attention, and I have been staying up to date about the comments about that. A lot of them, including I would say negative reviews. I actually did write a blog on my website, eileendong.com, and so, what my take is, I really love the fact that it's bringing the attention now to our community about human trafficking. Because so many people just like don't even know what human trafficking is. I remember sitting in the theater. I actually had to make a appointment for myself so I can make the time to watch it. But sitting at the cinema, there were these two girls sitting there. They were really shocked about what's going on. They were constantly making comments about that. So I think the fact that it's bringing the awareness to our community, to our country now about there is this thing called human trafficking is great. But I would say the work doesn't just end there. So now that we have raised the awareness, let's educate our community what human trafficking really is. And that goes back to the pillars of our organization, and not just our organization, but many organizations. I believe in the collaboration of many organizations to educate our community, educate our citizens what human trafficking is about. I've mentioned earlier, everyone can be a victim and it's happening in your backyard. So while the movie is talking about child sex trafficking only happening in Colombia, it also happens here.
It's
While
just an
the
example of one space, but it's happening all over the world. And a
it,
lot of people don't really feel like it's happening in small town America, but it is.
totally, and funny enough that we have one of our speakers at the conference who lived in Colombia and the Caribbean basin for over 20 years rescuing kidnapped children. So he's gonna come on and speak more about, dive into details. Because I read some of the reviews, they were like, well, this is the Hollywood aspect that they're talking about, just the hero, but we really want to be survivor centered. So I brought on this speaker to share his real-time experience about what's really happening over there, because only when we are educated about what's happening around the world. The reason why I want people to be educated, yes, it's happening overseas, yes, it's happening here. But how do we put this in a larger picture? I give you an example. So the sex trafficking ring, it's happening as like the organized criminal ring. That's what I call it, because they have we have prosecuted a trafficker that trafficked our victim to a different state, not in Houston. But then they recruited them from another state. But the trafficker recruit them from another state, and then they also bring victims from other countries. So everything is interconnected, whether you like it or not. Only when we equip ourselves with the knowledge can we understand. And you can read more about the information about the different types of trafficking in my blog. Again, it's on eileendong.com. But I can fill you in that what it does not talk about is labor trafficking. And I'm really glad to see, I'm on different councils on the national level. I'm working closely with the UN, and there will be more work that will be coming in September. But the most recent work is July 30th. I spoke at the World Day Against Trafficking in Persons. Regardless of all of these, I wanted you to know that this is just happening everywhere, and it's all interconnected, and it's interconnected through cross sectors. Another example is supply chain. So labor trafficking. So you just think, oh, what just happened? So you hire this person and you coerce this person to do the work for you, whether it's like debt bound or whatever other situations. But you don't know that that goes to the ethical sourcing. That goes back to, I really think that God works in his miraculous ways. Who would know in 1,000 years that I back in the days was an executive in supply chain management, and I know ins and out about from quality control ISO numbers, from inspections to ship like FOB, CIF, and different like trading terms on the shipment and everything. But today we apply this to the sourcing, ethical sourcing in the supply chain. Because let's say, okay, yes, looking at the small picture, this victim is making, let's say, agriculture, picking chocolate. I like chocolate. So picking the cacao seed,
Yeah, that's
and
a large one.
right, so now do we buy this cacao chocolate? Well, I hate to say, like, I love chocolate, but now I'm having to watch the label. So is this ethically sourced? Because otherwise we are really feeding the traffickers to say, yeah, I'm gonna buy your unethically sourced chocolate while you're labor trafficking those persons. So everything is interconnected, and I swear to you, it is connected to your everyday life, you like it or not. There are people in the agriculture picking up cottons, and I can just pick up, a suit that I'm getting ready to travel, like, this outfit. I say, okay, so, but now I have to read the label, see, okay, is this ethical sourced? Is this company ethical and everything? And that's something that is in the works.
Well, that's exciting that there's going to be a way to check. We all, that's what I was going to ask. As us as citizens, we're kind of lost often. I know lost often as to what we can actually do about the situation. People talk about organized crime, people talk about cartels, and we don't realize how much it is really what we've. It's our dollar. It's what we choose to invest in, what we choose to put our money into, and it's a lot of times when we're getting a good deal, we don't know how many people we're hurting on the other end just to get that little discount. And so I think that's something that we all really need to be thinking about more is paying that extra dollar so that a person can make an ethical and fair wage,
That
for what they're doing.
that's really tricky, because that goes
It is
back to,
tricky.
it's so tricky, because it's on our end, it's about, yes, we pay $1. I think, whether or not we like it, I would encourage everyone, we must pay the one extra dollar. But on the other hand, that's a topic that was raised at the national summit this actually this month. I was in DC. So I had, discussions, and we're still in the works on that. But just to let you in a little bit of the details is, consider this. So I'm talking about ABC company is hiring these people for the cotton, but there's also another company, say Eileen Dong's company, sourcing for the cotton, and I'm doing this ethically. And regardless, okay, if we would put the ABC company out of business, and they are, regardless labor trafficking or not, they are helping these people. And a lot of the situation is vulnerability, economic situation. I talked earlier. Victims cannot leave because they don't have a place to stay, they don't have money, they don't have food on the table. So we're literally going to possibly take away the food on their table. So that's something that's in the works.
It's very delicate diplomatic situation, and it's so many inspiring people like yourself, working in, and I'm so I don't even know it's proud is a strange word, I guess, because I'm your friend. I'm very proud of everything that you have worked on, and I'm very proud of being a part always being able to showcase what you're working on through my journalism. So I really appreciate you joining me today. I definitely will be at your conference. We definitely will. International Focus Magazine will be proud to continue to promote that as these months come on. And there was one thing I'm trying to think of one more thing I wanted to ask you about your book. Where can people find it? Where can people get a
So
copy?
you can go to my link right now. It's to publish a book, it takes a long process. So the best way is to go to my website, Eileen Dong, EILEENDONG.com, and to add to the wait list. And once the book is released, we will be making the announcement and continue from there. You can still, because we will put a link on my website in order for you to direct you to purchase the book.
Okay.
And it's going to be released really soon. And I'm sorry it took so long, because Heidi, and thank you for being in my journey, for believing in me. Because like I said, when we met, you didn't even know what I was going through and what I'm doing, but you always were supporting me quietly in the background. I really appreciate yourself and International Focus for all the support. But yeah, it took a long time because of the trauma I had to relive. But I just finally had to put the foot down to say, you know what, I just have to do this, because this is not about me. I want to share the light with the people who are still going through that. I want this to be a companion book for law enforcement and victim service providers, so it can make their life easier to support the people from especially culturally specific communities, but also victims at large, so that they can really provide them what we call the trauma informed and survivor centered service.
Thank you so much. Thank you for everything you do in the community and for everything, for always supporting us here at International Focus Magazine. We will certainly have you back with us. Please repeat your website, and maybe do you have an Instagram handle that you'd like to throw out there?
Yes, definitely. So there are two websites. One is HopeX Global, where you can also find the conference and the International Book Awards. It's hopepyxglobal.org. And my website, where you can find my information, where you need more training information and or the book, and to be added on the notification list, it's eileendong.com, EILEENDONG.com. With the Instagram handle, it's the same, HopeX Global. For the Instagram for Eileen, it's Eileen Dong Official. And it's all the same handles except for LinkedIn. I just use Eileen Dong. And you can find me on all the portals.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. And on closing out for International Focus Podcast, you can find us on Instagram at international_focus. Our website is ifmagazine.net. And for me, HPP Photo. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you so much for having me.